Coming to you from Star Studios in Denton, Texas, and Tom Collins Signs in Limerick, Ireland. This is Coffee with a Sign Painter, a podcast hosted by sign painter Sean Starr and Tom Collins. This groovy soundtrack was written and performed by Fergal Lawler of the Cranberries. Thanks, Fergal.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Coffee with a Sign Painter. Got a lot of catching up to do. We, as any of you who've been listening regularly know, we took a hiatus and took care of some other things, and then that kind of just turned into month after month going by, and so some of you were kind enough to reach out and badger us about getting some new episodes out, which was good because it kind of motivated us to get off our butts and do something. So that's what we got going on. We got new episodes, we got a bunch of new stuff lined up. We're going to get everything on a pretty regular basis going forward. So today's episode is a nice interview with Kathryn from the Houston Center for Contemporary Craft, which is currently doing an exhibit on sign painting. In the interview, it gets into the details of that. And my good buddy Tom Collins over in Limerick, Ireland, was unable to jump in on this one, so we're going to do this episode, and he'll jump in future episodes and do our normal shtick of kind of a Larry David and his buddy kind of vibe we got going. But I sincerely want to thank everybody who's reached out to us over the last couple of months. We got out of the groove of doing the episodes, and once that happens, it's kind of hard to kickstart again. So that was a really nice thing. So appreciate it. And we will now get into the interview with Kathryn, and then we will finish, as usual, with a track from our Hooli Records to get you going. So here's my interview with Kathryn. Okay, so we're with Kathryn Hill. Where are you from? Why are we talking to you?
Sure. So I live in Houston, Texas, and I'm the curator at Houston Center for Contemporary Craft. And we currently have a show that is on view right now in our space called For Hire, Contemporary Sign Painting in America. It's a show that's curated by Faith Levine and Sam Macon, who wrote a book on sign painting and also a fantastic documentary. And we at the Craft Center really felt that it was important to give them a physical space to bring some of the artists that they featured in the documentary, as well as some others that they didn't get to include, an actual opportunity to present their work in person for people to see together.
Okay. And Kaylee and I were down there was that the opening evening, right?
Yeah, you guys kicked us off.
Yeah. So you're doing something, I think, very unique in that throughout the exhibition, which lasts through January, is that correct?
Yeah, so originally, and this is some exciting news for us, originally it was supposed to close on the 7th, but we've been able to extend it. It will be running through the 14th of January.
Okay.
Which gives us more opportunity to showcase the work. We kind of worked with Sam and Faith to do something a little bit different in our space, in that we invited a series of sign painters to come in and actually create work inside the exhibition space while the show is on view. So, Sean, you guys got to kick us off at the opening with your, reverse glass mirrored piece that you were able to do for us over the weekend. And then we've had a series of other sign painters that have come in, and we have 2 more on the schedule to come in and add to the exhibition.
Okay, and Who are some of those people? Because most of the folks listening will probably be familiar with those names. Who are some of the other sign artists that have come in or are coming in still?
Right. So we had Israel McLeod created our title wall for the exhibition. He's a local Houston-based sign painter. He's been he's a fourth generation sign painter. He's been working in Houston as well as he's worked all over, as many of the sign painters in the show have. Then we had Norma Jean Maloney, who's currently living out of Taylor, Texas. We had you guys from Denton, and then we just finished up a project with Ira Coyne and Forrest Wozniak.
Yeah.
And they did a large-scale mural that basically gave an introduction to what it might look like to step into a sign shop. And it was created by images of their studios that they kind of mixed together, as well as they did some research around the area while they were here. They were here for 2 weeks and saw different signs around town and different aspects of Houston that they then kind of integrated into that mural as well as some of the furniture that you would find at the craft center. So it's been kind of fun to see them work on that project. They just finished that up. And then Caetano Valenzuela, he's currently in Brooklyn, New York. He's coming in next. He'll be here at the very end of November through early December, and then we'll have Ken Davis, who's the final artist, coming in mid-December. And then we also started the show out with a couple of folks that just sent in signs so that we would actually have something to show on opening night. So Shelby Rodifer and Bob Bahunek, and we have Yvette Rutledge and Vince Mitchell. And I think that is everybody that we started out with in the space.
Yeah, so I guess to clarify to anyone listening, the show incrementally is getting bigger and bigger as each person comes in and adds more to the space. So
right.
Definitely want to catch it and see the progression if you're available to.
Yeah, it's been, we've never worked with a model like this before, and it was kind of a gamble for us, opening a show with maybe only 25% of our space occupied for such a long time. But I think it's been really exciting, especially, we've had people that came to see the show specifically. We've also had a lot of visitors who are just, maybe they're visiting Houston, or maybe they're just coming to explore the craft center, and they happen to come in, and we have somebody working in the space, and it's exciting for them to get to see what the process is that's unfolding for a piece instead of just seeing the finished piece, and they're able to ask questions. And I think, that's something that oftentimes when you think of museums, you see the end product and you don't really get a look into how something's made, and that's something that we really try to emphasize at the Craft Center and educate our audience about the excitement and the importance of understanding how an object is made and what kind of value that brings to the finished product.
Yeah, when we were there, we took the time to kind of explore some of the little workspaces where you've got the artists in residence, and it was very cool to see and talk to, those artists that were, some were using a loom to do weaving, and just really neat to actually see the process versus just seeing the finished product. It's pretty cool.
Right, yeah, and I think, I've been at the center for 5 years now, and it's been really interesting to see that relationship between visitors and the artists that we have in our residency program, and then also kind of seeing how people are benefiting from that experience, both the visitors that are coming in, but then we also have artists that are maybe their projects are community oriented, or they're getting feedback on their work, or people are asking them questions about what they're doing that's getting them to think about what they're doing in a different way, that it's exciting just to kind of witness that as well. And I think, too, it really kind of builds another sense of community at the center, because they all kind of get to know each other on a deeper level, too, by being able to stop in someone's studio and kind of see how their own thought process is evolving as they're making something.
Sure. So I'm curious, you're daily involved in that world and putting together the shows and everything, and we've had opportunity to be in a handful of gallery exhibitions where there's been a kind of a shift of this being a trade for most of us that are old enough to have been doing it a long time, to now being viewed as an art form. Like, what were signs even like on your radar prior to this? Like, what was your perception before versus now that you're in the thick of it?
Sure. I think that I've always been drawn to, hand lettering and seeing sign work around town. But it really wasn't probably, and I think a lot of people will say this too, or have said this, I think, really because of the research that Sam and Faith did, and really kind of giving sign painters a platform to speak about their trade and the history behind sign painting, that I found that really intriguing. And I think it's something too, when you think about traditional crafts, you think about wood, fiber, clay, glass, metal. And for us, at the center, I think we're wanting to broaden the way that we're thinking about what is craft, how are we looking at craft-based objects. And Perry, our executive director, and I really enjoyed Sam and Faith's research and all of the artists that were included in that project, and felt like it was a good opportunity for us to do something different in our space. We've never shown sign painting. We don't show painting, really. But I think that, sign painting has such a rich history. Just in the trade itself, it takes such an incredible level of skill, and it's not necessarily always 2D either,
Right.
And I think then you start thinking about what materials are being used. I mean, obviously, there's the one-shot enamel, but then you have like what you're doing, working with gold leaf and the gilding, and that just opens up a whole another conversation and thinking about the importance of material and what is going into creating that finished product or that end effect. And I hope that what we can offer is that we're kind of calling people to start realizing where craft lies in their day-to-day. And so hopefully now when someone goes to their local coffee shop or restaurant or business, and maybe it's not local, maybe it's corporate too, but then there are certain details of a space that maybe they're looking at differently.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And, touching on Faith and Sam, there was a lot of anxiety and trepidation, I think, leading up to the release of the book and then later the film, of how we would all be represented and how our story would be told. And there was just a huge sigh of relief by everyone because, from Faith and Sam coming in kind of from the outside, there was, I think there was some anxiousness on all of our parts of like, what story are they going to tell? Because, like for myself, the segment in the movie where I'm talking, that was maybe a couple of minutes out of like an hour and a half conversation, and I was like thinking like, oh man, I probably said some really insane stuff during that hour and a half. Like, what are they going to use? How's it going to look? But they did an awesome job. And I think the focus that they chose of talking about the transition with technology and all of that, like, really spoke to a lot of us because, you know, a lot of us lived through that and came out the other side.
Yeah.
And you can't really share with somebody one-on-one how impactful that was and how disheartening in so many ways. But I think in the context of the film especially, they really told that story by pulling in everybody's input on it. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that it's really exciting to kind of have that window into your world, you know, and they were able, I think, to pull together a group of individuals that probably, I mean, a lot of the individuals in the book and the documentary had at least heard of one another. Mm-hmm. But I think for most people outside of sign painting, these are, you know, this is a new experience for them. And I think it's really exciting that you have been able to share that with your clients and with other people that are experiencing your work. And I think one thing that I've really enjoyed is when people have come in to do the projects for the For Hire show is talking to them about their work, but then also kind of having this conversation about what that experience was like, working with Sam and Faith and reflecting on that. I think this show having happened several years after the documentary was released has been a good opportunity to kind of reflect on that experience. I'm kind of curious, like, how that has impacted you, Sean, since you participated in the documentary and the book, and have you kept it? I mean, have you now, because some of these other folks are also involved in the project, had any additional communication with, say, like Norma Jean, or have you just kind of, how has that kind of affected you?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's been really incredible because I think most of us that were in the project were aware of each other's work and respected each other's work, but the guy who co-hosts this show with me, Tom Collins, he's in Limerick, Ireland, and we talk about this a lot. Is, you know, there's so much working solitary in this trade that, you know, you're very much a loner and very much kind of tucked away in your studio working on stuff all the time, that most of us are probably really socially dysfunctional at this point. So it kind of opened the door for a lot of us to be able to, like, I don't know if bond is the right word, but to have more of an open dialogue, because it was like, you know, well, I knew, like, Gary Martin's work and what it looked like, and I really liked his work and thought he was awesome. But then you see him in the film, or you see Norma Jean or Ira, and you're like, okay, now I'm starting to see the personality behind that. And so you kind of just, a familiarity, I think, grew there. And, you know, like Tom, who does the show with me, he's in Ireland. He wasn't in the project, you know, but we bonded just through social media, and these all have tentacles that go back to the book and the film, and we became really, really close friends, and then ended up doing a project out in Ireland, and, you know, then really hit it off, so we started doing podcasts together and everything. And so I see that, and it's, like, really exciting to me, because so many of us are kind of like these mad scientist hermit people that are just in our shops doing our thing, that, you know, we've also been able to, like, make genuine friendships and, you know, do stuff that we never would have had opportunity to do. And that's where I think Faith and Sam have done something for all of us that is like priceless, is that it's opened up doors and opportunities for all of us that, and a bunch of other sign painters that, you know, are even just now coming into the trade. It's opened up things for them that they may not even see yet.
Yeah, that's really great. I'm curious, like, have you had any like up and coming sign painters try to connect with you since you've been a part of this project?
Yeah, we get contacted at least a couple of times a month by somebody who wants to learn, and unfortunately we're not able to like extend that to everyone. But there's a few people that I have been able to connect with, and like James Roy Thomas out in Los Angeles, he reached out to me early on. This was probably 5 years ago now, and he had just come out of the LA Trade Tech program for sign painting, and we really connected and hit it off. And so, you know, we've had a email thing going back and forth for years now, where if he runs into an issue or a question, he'll shoot me something and I'll look it over and give him my 2 cents, and that's been really cool and rewarding. And there's a couple of people that I've worked with like that, and you know, we get approached about things like doing workshops and things like that, but when we're trying to operate our studio on a daily basis, like, we may eventually do that, but like the whole concept of it is really daunting because it would take so much prep time and things to do.
I mean, it kind of shifts your studio practice and your business focus, I'm sure, too, if you were to adjust to that. It's exciting, though, to hear that not only people are interested in the work that you're doing, but they're also people that are interested in re-engaging with the trade too, and wanting to continue picking that up. I mean, that's one thing that I think, seeing the work in the space at the Craft Center, we have Bob Bahunek's work right next to Remy Choi, and you know, Bob's been working for, you know, almost 50 years.
Yeah, he's like a living legend to a lot of us.
Right. But then Remy's been working for 4 years, and I think kind of seeing, you know, we felt like it was really important to include how long someone had been working in the industry. But I think when you start looking around and seeing that, and seeing people like Bob, who have inspired so many of the sign painters that are in the show at the Craft Center, in the same space, like their work actually in the same space, I think it's really exciting to kind of see that.
And that attitude has always been there. So it's interesting that you tapped into that. Is there's people who are doing it and there's people who are not, and I think that's how most sign painters have always viewed it. Is, you know, once somebody like jumps in and enters the trade and they're actually operating, you know, I've rarely met any sign painters that didn't view that with anything but respect, you know, because we'd all been there in that stage. And, you know, there's guys way older than me that have gone further down the road than I have, and so I'm not there either, you know. It's like, and everybody gets that and is very supportive of it. And I think that surprises some of the younger people coming into it. Is I think they're kind of expecting that they're going to, you know, get hazed or something, but we just want to see the trade continue, you know. So, but we balance that, I think most of us do, with you also got to earn your keep. You know, you got to like dig in, you got to invest the time, you got to really learn, and you got to learn about the trade too. It's not just, oh, well, I came out of graphic design school and I think I'm good at, you know, lettering or something. It's like there's a whole trade and a history to it, and a, you know, there's a lot more there than just one little offshoot of graphic design, which I've seen that attitude too, and it's like those are people, in my opinion, that are never going to stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see. There is also this kind of group of individuals who are using certain like techniques with technology of printing things out and then kind of halfway hand letter. I don't know how you would really define that or call some of it. It's like a direct like translation. It's not vinyl, but I think it's interesting in looking at like the, tried and true techniques and then how other people are kind of using this like hybrid space to like design something on the computer and print it out, but then like finish that work. It's been interesting to kind of see how that fits in too.
Yeah, and in fairness on that front, especially now, as opposed to like when I got started where that was pre-computer, there's a lot of people, including us on occasion, that are straddling the fence, to where some of it's dictated by the client who is, giving you a file or giving you a computerized font that they want painted, and you just do what you have to do because it's also, a business. So
it's a business, yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's always been that way too. I mean, looking back on it, even when vinyl first came out, I worked in a shop that did this, and I knew several other guys that did this, and it's really comical looking back on it, is so many people were saying they wanted vinyl, but a lot of people didn't have any computer skills. And so what some people were doing, including the shop I worked in, is they would take a piece of vinyl and they would hand sketch everything out, and then with an X-Acto cut the vinyl just like a machine would cut it. And then apply that. So, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's actually been really intriguing about this trade is there's always been like trying to fill the gap because you got to get the job because the electric bills due. And so it's really fostered a ton of creativity as opposed to just relying on, computers or whatever to just do it for you. Which I kind of admire when somebody comes up with kooky stuff like that, Yeah.
Well, I also think too, I've in talking to the different individuals who've come in and worked in our space so far. Like, for instance, like you have someone like Israel McLeod who, he doesn't really even have an email address. Like, he is kind of like, I don't want to be connected online. Like, I still am going to go out and have my practice by kind of word of mouth or going door to door. If he, drives by and sees that someone's, sign work looks a little shoddy outside, he said that he'll just go in and say, hey, I noticed your sign. Like, have you thought about like revamping this? And he's still kind of very much, I think, of kind of old school in that way with how he approaches his business, which I think, today I know I'm so constantly, for better or for worse, connected to my phone and emailing people and things, but to see like how different sign painters are taking slightly different approaches to their own professional practice.
Yeah.
Are you using Instagram a lot to like showcase the work that you're doing? Are you, focusing more on going door to door, and looking at, I think there's a huge diversity in terms of how different people have their own studio practice.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because I've run into that as well. I was having a conversation with Gary Martin, who's down in Austin, and we were talking about putting together a little letterhead meet, which is when you get a handful of people together and swap ideas and stuff. And he was telling me, he's like, oh, well, there's a couple of guys down here that I can bring. And I'm like, well, who are they? And it's people, like, they don't exist on the internet. You could never find them, but they're good sign painters. And, that I think is probably the underlying story all over the country is there's a lot of guys that as the internet came on, they just stayed off of it and ignored it, and they don't use email, and they have their little handful of clients they keep, that they stay busy with. I don't know. We've talked about that issue on this show too, of like, I'm definitely not a Luddite, but I have that desire. I would love to Thoreau cabin in the woods with a shop out back type situation where you just, it doesn't work for my reality right now. But I mean, I also understand if there are guys like Israel that are able to just continue on and not be plugged into the matrix, like, more power to them. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I know he mentioned that he said that if he had an online presence, he said that he felt like he wouldn't know when to kind of shut things down. Like, he would be afraid that he would get so many requests for certain things, maybe projects that maybe he wouldn't necessarily be that interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So he finds that this, like, kind of old school way of operating his business is allowing him more flexibility and being more selective and what type of job he's choosing.
That's interesting because I know in our case, as well as a few others that I've talked to, when you can, on your online portfolio even, you can kind of gear it towards what you're wanting to work on it and kind of leave the rest out. And it sounds like he's doing that in an even more extreme way, but still doing the same thing of just only interested in working on what he's working on, and that's it. And that's I think that is the logical conclusion that anybody gets to after they've done this a long time is there's all sorts of work out there. You can go paint arrows in parking garages for the rest of your life and stay busy doing that, but I have no desire to do it.
Right. Well, and I mean, I feel like with your, I'm familiar with your website, you're really incorporating a lot of really great media, like video clips and things that I think is really attractive to, it draws you in a way that I think, I'm sure brings in a lot of clients, by being able to see that process that you show. And, I wonder, do you feel like you've gotten higher volume since you've been working with different types of media online to show your work? Or
I don't know if it's necessarily the volume has increased, but I think it's allowed us to be pickier on the type of projects that we take on. Mm-hmm. We've always been pretty busy, but I'm not willing to work on certain things anymore.
Yeah.
And so even if we hit a slow spot, I would rather hit a slow spot and then give some attention to around a studio of fixing something up than I would just taking every call we get and doing work that I don't enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it too is for guys like Israel. He's fourth generation. It's like when you're younger in the trade, you're taking everything pretty much you can get your hands on because you're doing two things. You're making some money, which you desperately need, and you're also kind of learning on the job, and so that's a good thing, and it's helpful. But that reaches a saturation point, and once you kind of get to the stage where there's certain types of the trade that you really feel like you've got semi-dialed in and you really enjoy doing, you don't want to give that up. So, again, the example of painting, arrows in parking garages, there's nothing wrong with that. And I've done that kind of work, a lot of it, and it's fine. But, when you, in our case, we do a lot of gold leaf on glass, and that's something that I've worked towards for years and years and years to get it good enough to even offer, in my opinion, where I felt good enough putting it out there. So it's I don't want to give that up and go back to painting arrows.
Right, and nor should you.
But painting arrows is completely good too. It's like, it's not what I want to do.
But the fact that you're able to, what it is that you want to work on, and you've found a way to do that and to be selective and to make sure that you can focus on that. I mean, if painting arrows was your thing and that's all you wanted to do, great, but it's, there's no right or wrong answer to that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think that's true. So the show is going to be on until middle of January, you said, like January 14th?
The 14th.
Kaylee and I are going to come back down for, do you have like a closing event, or what's going to happen?
Yeah, we have a last look, which is going to be on the 6th. Okay. That's going to be an opportunity for whoever wants to come down. I mean, all the projects will be up, and it'll be an opportunity really just for us to gather and celebrate the evolution of the exhibition. And to, I'm not sure who all will be coming down for that. I know you guys will be there. I know that some people have mentioned that they want to try to make it down, so I'm just going to be excited for whoever does come, and we'll celebrate.
Okay. So, and that's on the 6th.
On the 6th of January, yeah.
Okay, I might have to do a lot of driving because I just booked a job in Austin on the 6th.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. We'll figure it out. You
can rope Norma Jean into going, and you guys could all take a road trip.
That's true. Maybe we could do that. So
yeah.
Well, that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what the space looks like with all the stuff in there, because I keep seeing everybody's posts. That looks awesome,
Yeah. Well, you now have Forrest and Ira's huge mural is next to your work and your sign kit.
Okay.
So, and it's, it's the mural of the inside the studio, which I think, that is a really nice pairing with your sign kit, and then the mirrored glass piece that you did too. It looks great. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm anxious to see it all. I think it'll be really cool.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you back. You're always welcome. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks for coming on the show. This was really cool, and it's really cool to hear your perspective from the position that you're in and dealing with everything from pottery to textiles and all the other stuff in between. So it's really cool.
Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yes.
Okay, Hepcats. This is the part of the show where we play a song from the Arhoolie archive, so pay attention. You can get these tunes from the legendary Arhoolie records at arhoolie.com. Now sit back, open up some One Shot, crank up the volume, and expand your minds, babies.
Why you
Thanks for listening, folks. Tune in next episode for more madness from Sean and Tom. This episode was brought to you by Full City Rooster Coffee Roasters, makers of the Sign Painters Blend, the coffee Sean and Tom drink in their studios every day. Also brought to you by RebelRouserHotRods.com. Licensed apparel by Sean Starr, including support your local sign painter gear.